So welcome to the Project Forward session. In this session, we're going to discuss about launching, running, and scaling successful businesses. With us, we have Isabel Paradis, President of Hot Telecom. We have Andreas Hipp, CEO of Catalea, Fabrizio Salanitri, CEO of Horizon, and a very special guest, Elizabeth Schwartz, Customer Relations Director from Catalea. So let's get started. And I'll start with the first question to you, Fabrizio. Why did you decide to start your own business?
Well, I had a strong idea and the vision about the product, which I wanted to develop and to launch into the market. And this wish inside of me to start my own business was bigger than the fear of failing with my idea. So I was ready to start my own business when I realized that I was ready to take the risks for my idea and to leave my comfort zone. That was the beginning.
All right, thank you. Isabel, what about you?
Well, in my case, for some reason, I don't know why, I always wanted to have my own company from very early on. I cannot explain to you why, but I knew one day I would have my company. So it's something that I always wanted to do, and I actually achieved it, which I'm very proud, and explains for a lot of my wrinkles. You know, guys, I'm not as old as you think I am. But I think one of the reasons is because it gives you power over your own destiny. Apart from the passion about the product and what you're doing, what enables you is to really be in charge of your own life from start to finish. And that's, very valuable, I think. And if you're the type of person that can have that type of lifestyle, I think you're very lucky in some way. And I think nowadays it's even truer because now you can actually reach the world at a click of a button. So if you have a business idea that is valuable, then, you can do a lot of great things.
Okay. What about you, Andreas?
Can't even remember anymore. No. But well, I guess I was always a bit a curious person, maybe too curious from time to time, and obviously also had an employee life for quite a bit of time, and but I always belonged to some of the people who keep asking the question, what if we do it this way? What if we do that? And early 2000 in the telecoms industry, I was working for one of the operators. We kept going about what to do and all these big networks we're going to build and so forth. And most of them overlooked a very simple business opportunity. And when that gap kind of presented itself, we tried to be a bit brave and thought, why? Well, I think we know what to do, how to solve this problem, and that kind of forced us out of, as Fabrizio said, the comfort zone into a very uncomfortable zone. I had to realize very quickly. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the short story, which lasted very long.
Okay. And Fabrizio, when you started, right, when did you realize that your product was fit to market and there was a need and customers were willing to pay for that? When was that, that light bulb, that realization happened?
Well, I have to laugh because it was really not like that, to be honest. I mean, I had an idea which I was believing in very much, but my early days were very, very hard. Same like Andreas. Oh my God, don't remind me of these days because, I get goose skin. But it was hard because not all saw the sense of my idea and my product. And the reason then, or the consequence, the most did not buy my product. And looking back, I was maybe a few years too early with my idea. So I went the hard way and ran around for years to find customers. I dreamed about a product which were much more easy to enter into the business. But I got from day one a hard lesson from reality, and so much later on, I learned how I can monetize my ideas. And well, I don't know if I would have started my business if I knew how hard it will be, to be honest,
So just on a quick follow-up on there, so you had to pivot. Right? You started with one idea, you realized it wasn't, the market wasn't ready for the product that you wanted to bring forward.
I was ready, but the market.
You were ready, correct. So just on a quick question, right? How many times you had like to pivot, right, until you find until the market was ready, or you adapted your idea in a way that now you had a market to go after?
Can I jump in? Not that I never jump into discussions, but
sure.
I think it's a really, really interesting topic, a question even more now, because I don't think you can't calculate the number of times you pivot your business. Even more now, you have to continually reinvent it in multiple ways. Maybe not reinvent it 360 degrees, but you have to keep changing things, addressing new requirements, offering services in a different way, because our customers' reality is changing every day. That's the life we live in now in the society. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's the reality of our customers. And in our case, as we're trying to serve customers' needs, we have to be able to pivot all the time at different levels, and the way, even in the way we communicate, we communicate in a certain way. Maybe next week's a different way of communicating with different customers. So I think the pivot is non-stop in real time. You have to be able to be so close to your customers and to understand the market so well that you fine-tune your business all the time in terms of communication, in terms of the way you type of services, how you address your customers, and the business model as well. So yeah, it's challenging, but it's also quite interesting and rewarding if you're able to do that. But that's my view. Maybe the guys don't agree.
No, it's very important, and being close to your customers and understanding, telecoms technology, this is an ever-changing landscape, right? What's hot and new 2 years ago or last year, the next year is no longer relevant or is outdated. And this is an interesting bit. And Andreas, I wanted kind of to ask you, right? When you started, you had a problem stated, right? You changed your product, you had an idea, right? How did you find the niche market, right? Because when you start something, you can't go global and have that scalability that you can target everything, right? There's a laser focus, you need to be laser focused on what you need. How did you find that niche market, right? Where you thought you'd be more successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many other startups today, we were not actually searching for an opportunity, right? So as I said, we worked in a telecoms industry, and we kind of stumbled across a gap, which we felt this is really actually something that's fairly simple to solve. It just needs to take the right approach and get the right people around it, right? But then again, right, we also fell for the usual, how should I say, error in planning, which is called revenue projections. They sound so lovely on paper, right? But they are so difficult to reach, and you face all sorts of things like, that things always take longer than you think they do. And then even when you think it's a no-brainer, to yourself at least. And then also what many forget, and we did as well, is the perceived risk that customers have about new companies and new services, right? Especially when it's a critical product, right? If it's just something to wash your hair, fair enough, right? But if something you run your business on, people are very much cautious around moving around, changing suppliers or vendors. So I think that was a big lesson we had to learn. And luckily, our opportunity was already a niche, right? So we provide connectivity for a very narrow segment of telco service providers. And that was actually quite good for us, and gave us a great chance. But again, there is this couple of elements I think people always forget. And if you don't have the stamina to sit it through, then there is an issue. And I mean, for us, we didn't have to pivot the service model, right? That was correct. We just had to change the cost model quite dramatically to make us go along and make us survive, actually. And it, all ended up well, but I'm not forgetting these 3-4 years of my life either.
Thank you. And going back to that, right, Elizabeth, as a very early member, as part of Epsilon, right, when Andreas started it and executing on this strategy, How was the team guided to execute on this and deal with the issues that Andreas was talking about, right? That, the product was fit, the concept was good. It was just the timing and how to deal with the expectations, both on revenue, on closing deals and all of that. How was that experience?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, we had good products and services and solutions, but and also, as Andreas mentioned, we were a startup, so people didn't really know us. We had to really build our reputation. So in the beginning, you just run against a lot of closed doors, and it's just simply, you just have to keep going. You have to just be persistent and just do it again and again and again until suddenly one door opens. Okay, you have your foot in. You try again, and it's just a very slow road, I would say. So but then I guess this might also be what sets you apart. You might have a great idea, you might have a great product, but then you have to have the breath to sit it out and just never give up, really. It's nonstop. You just have to believe in it and go for it. But then I guess we were also quite lucky that we had a leader such as Andreas, because he was kind of the face of the company, and people knew him, people trusted him. So with that leadership, all we had to do is basically follow. He was very clear in what he wanted. He was very clear on how he wanted to achieve that, who is the customers, who to talk to, what to sell, why we sold it. And I think this passion, it just carried through the team, and I think it made a lot of things possible because we were so much behind it all, and we had such a great leadership. Maybe another point, or what I learned quite early on, is really to listen. I think it was even a pub talk we had in one of the after sessions after work. What is really the
courses.
Yeah, exactly.
The training courses, not pub talks.
Involved a lot of beer as well. So yeah, what really the person you're trying to sell to, what are they trying to achieve? What is the challenges? Why would they buy from you? What they want to achieve also personally? They have a job, they have a boss, they want to achieve certain things. So it was really, I think, a lot about listening and trying to understand what would work for a customer, and how we have to make it happen. And then leads probably to the next point, relationships. So we were really given a lot of opportunity right from the early days to join meetings, to go to events, to really learn the job by doing it. And I think these relationships really carried us a long way. And it actually was all about the relationships I think we had with the clients, because once one client bought a service from you, they're happy, they talk to other people. It was really the word of mouth that really, made it all happen and made us, I think, successful in the end. And it was really the customers in the end of the day then that helped us sell the solutions. So yeah, that was kind of, I think, how I think helped us a lot to really be successful in that market.
Okay. And there's a good story behind, right, how you joined Epsilon at the time, in terms of you had to step out of your comfort zone to do this.
Well, yeah, so it was really my first job. So to be honest, I had no idea about business. I had no bloody idea about telecoms. Not even much about life, to be honest. I was really young. It was my first job. So I think it was really a jump into the cold water. And but I think if you're open, and if you just you just actually don't think much about it. Probably if you would think about certain things, and as Andreas and Fabrizio also pointed out, I think if you would think about certain things too much or know in advance what's coming, you might not even want to do it. So so I think it's really to take the chance and just go for it.
And we're talking about successful business, right? And how important it is to hire the right people for the right, the right skills or the right mindset, or there's a mix, there's a health mix. So, and I'll ask this to Andres first and then get the opinion of everyone else, right? how important is those first hires, right? There's the co-founders, right, which everyone is aligned, but your first employees, right, or your first team members are the ones that are really going to drive this through, right? They're the make it or break it. So, Andreas, when you started Epsilon, started teaming putting the teams around people like Elizabeth and some others that you had, what would you looking for at the time to help you grow Epsilon?
Well, I think not just in startups, I guess in any company, and ideally for the entire life of a business, you need people with drive, right? People who possess inner motivation and do not just look for more money, more status, power, and career and work-life balance, which is the most popular word these days, at least what I hear. So, and I think if you can unleash that drive that people have, not all, obviously, but some, that's the trick, is to find them. I think you have the most powerful weapon in your organization, right? And if you create the right environment where they can strive and they can find what they typically look for, entrepreneurial people look for autonomy, mastery, purpose in their life, right? Then I think you have a very, very strong team. And this is more about skill set and education and everything else. Many things people can learn, right, even later in their life. But these are some pedigrees, I think, which are very key in people to find. And as Elizabeth also mentioned, right, we went through tough times as well. And to have that persistence and keep knocking on all these doors over and over again is not something for the faint-hearted, right? Right? Especially, maybe these days, and younger people are more used to immediate success and a lot of yeses. But reality, unfortunately, there's quite a few no's on the way. But that's I would say as a general statement from my side.
Isabel, your opinion on this?
I think I resonate with the craziness needed to start a business. And if I had known, I probably wouldn't have gone in that direction. But I think, yes, I think passion is the number one. You have to be passionate, not just about business, about life in general. And because business is people, we talk about connection, who is, at the end of the day, it's about people and passion. And if you have that in you, people will start listening to you and believing in you. Obviously, depending on, my product is more a people's product, and an information product. Maybe it's different from if it's an actual car or a physical product, is different. But in my case, it's very much a people's business. So if they see in you the passion, they will believe in you. I mean, but stamina, courage, and a lot of craziness. So you have to have that as an entrepreneur. And I think the people you bring in have to have some level, maybe not at your level of craziness, but they have to have that in you. But Andreas, once in the last few years, he wrote an interesting article about the people you hire, and you put them in the right jobs for who they are, and not try to change them to fit into the mold that you think they should fit in. If you try that, you're always going to fail. So the trick is, it's not easy to find good people, even less in a startup. So you have to have that capability of finding the right people, convincing them it's a good idea, and then making them do the job that they're the best at. And I think Andreas's article on that topic was really, really interesting. We keep trying to put the people in the wrong jobs, and then we're surprised that it doesn't work. Not just in startup, in business in general. But obviously in startup, it's more acute because you have less people. So you have to really succeed. The people you have to, get the most out of them as you can. So yeah, that's my view on that.
Fabrizio, what about you? Your early team members, what were you looking at the time?
Well, I just can sign what Isabel said, and also Andreas, like my words. Maybe on top what I can add is, in the beginning, your team, they don't work for a company, because company did not even exist. You're just founding it. They work for you, right? If your idea is great and you have fire and passion, then you can motivate them because they believe in you and your ideas that you can make it, And if you then have people which likes, the drive, what even you have, then they can follow, right? And to find people like that is not easy. Which also leave their comfort zone just because they believe in something. So I think the early employees are also very, very special people, important people. Then what I can add here is maybe that when I started my business, I tried to hire people which are smarter than I am. So because if they are, you know, you don't found the company just that you are the superstar, right? You found the company because you have an idea, you want to move it forward. And might be it helps, you know, that you are good in certain things, but for sure, you know, I'm not saying that every entrepreneur is a one-trick pony, but it looks like it has some strengths and some weakness. So try to hire people which are better than you, maybe in certain cases, and trust them, you know, and let them go.
Okay.
So this is my early days, you know.
All right. No, it's a very interesting perspective. And, you know, there's another one that I think Isabel is better equipped to answer is how challenging you think, or do you think it is more challenging to be a woman entrepreneur before? And it'll be interesting to get a comparison from before, right, to the current days. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it obviously will vary depending on the industry you're in, the type of business you're in, the market you're trying to address, your country where you're trying to do business in. So obviously you'll have a whole, you know, gradient of difficulties. I was lucky, I come from Canada, so by definition to start with, it was maybe easier than it is for other women in other regions. But, you know, of course it's more difficult, but because for some reason, you know, we have to prove more than men that we know what we're talking about to be taken seriously. However, I never really stopped to think about it. I think it's not productive to start. I know I'm not a victim in life. And if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot be the type of people that feel you're a victim. So I never even actually think about it. It's just one more barrier. I don't even think they're not giving me that contract or they don't agree with me because I'm a woman. It's just because it is the way it is. So, and then you move on, you find ways to solve things. You should never think of, I don't think it's productive to think that you're having more difficulty because you're a woman. And I interviewed lots of women in the industry in the last 5 years, CEOs, C-level women that have been really successful. And one of them really sparked something in me. She was a CEO of a big operator. And I asked that question. And she said, you know, she said, when you're on the stage, in the industry, in telecom, obviously it's almost all men, you're the only woman on stage. That's a huge opportunity for you. It's a huge benefit because who will people remember? The person that is different, which is you as a woman. So you have a big advantage when you do business, when you're on stage, when you speak. People will recognize you, or will remember you, or will notice you much more than if you're a man, which the room is full of. I remember once I was at an event with Andreas, so he probably doesn't remember, a few years ago. And then, I don't know if it's him or someone next to me just touched my arm and said, Isabel, do you realize we're about 150 people in this room and you're the only woman? Actually, I hadn't even realized it. So we're definitely in an industry with lots of men. So that really, so she said, you know, if you can capitalize on that opportunity because you're different, already people will remember you better, and you have what it takes to show that you know what you're talking about, you have the acumen, you know, to have a successful business, to deliver a successful product, you should be ahead of the competition. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, it's more difficult. I don't think you should dwell on it. I don't even spend any minute on that ever. But then you think, okay, how can I turn that into a benefit for me? Obviously, you have to have the goods behind it. You know, you can't just capitalize because you're different and you think people will give you business. You know, you have to do the first step and then you capitalize on that. But that's my experience. I mean, obviously in telecom and where I am.
It varies, but technology world, right? Telecom is part of the technology world. So I would like to pivot a little bit here, right? So both Epsilon and Horizon, right, are no longer, or even at the time, they grew to be large international companies, right? Very transactional, right, in terms of their operations. And one of the things we learn is that as you scale, sometimes growing, right, can become a real problem if you don't account for how are you going to manage that, the governance, the framework you put around, you know, revenue management, expansion, and all of that, right? So once you get the formula right in terms of the product, the market, and, you know, things start kicking in and you have a highly transactional operation side, right? how did, and I'll start with you, Fabrizio, and then go to Andreas in terms of that, is how did you address that? What worked and what failed as you had to manage with this growth, right? With the change in how you manage your revenue, your growth, all of the operations around that.
So, well, to have a growth problem sounds like a good problem, right? But a good problem is still a problem. And what I would like to remind here is that there is not really a recipe for this, which can work in all cases. If this would be so easy, then every company next door, you know, and in the world would be very successful and a multi-billion company. But as you know, this is not the case. So what is the difference here? And I think every business model is unique somehow. Even you have competition, but how you do a business is the way how you do it. And this means that you have to solve this problem, which fits to your organization, to your company. And what I can say is just that you have to dare to try different things, measure the results, change it if they are not good, you know, and change it also if the result is not that what you expected. And don't fear to fail. I think that's a very good recipe, if there is one, because one thing I can guarantee to everyone, you will fail, and maybe even often, but you don't have to fear to it, because when you learn from errors, you know, this makes you smarter and better. And I think the second part of the recipe would be just don't give up, and because this is important, just stay on that and on track. So more I cannot give you how precise we can do that, because it's a very fluid, right? You have to.
So it's still something that you're still going through as you grow, right? You constantly have to readapt, you know, how do you deal with even the growth process, you know, manage all these things, deal with these good problems, right? Which are still problems, as you mentioned, right? It's constantly evolving at the different stages of growth.
Sure. I mean, the more years you are in business, you know, the more, let's say, practice you have, the more experience you have, and might be you have also more tools in your bag which you can adapt. But still, you know, sometimes you have to improvise, you know, to find your own way and then try to certain things. Because as I said, there is not, you know, a thing where you go to Harvard University, study this, and then it will be a perfect match for this problem. No, you have to be smart. Your people have to be smart and try to solve a problem in the cheapest and easiest way, you know, but fitting to your organization. Because just because your competitor solved something in this way does not mean that it will fit in your organization, your company. So you have to find your way. Okay,
Andreas, your take on this?
Yeah, no, I'm fully with Fabrizio here as well. I think there is no rule book, right? You can just rent from the library or download from Google or somewhere, or Amazon is the bookshop, right? But growth management is an important piece of the whole evolution, right? Day one, you might not think about it because you know kind of try to find your feet and make the next 12 months. But I think it's very important, especially for self-funded or limited funded companies, because you don't have the resources to waste nor the time. It's probably also very important for very well-funded organizations, because if they have too much cash, then it triggers adventurism, complacency, resulting in failure and loss of investor confidence. But you know, that's for the big boys to resolve. But I think for typically the startups we talk about, I think that to keep an eye on that is certainly important, and not to run after every great looking opportunity and completely pivoting off your track if it's not necessary, right? And in the few startups I've been involved the last 20 years, there's one kind of flow, or not model, cycle really. I have been monitoring, right? Not that I built it, but I just see it happening over and over again, not always to my happiness. But you know, when you start, it's all excitement, right? Which ends in 3-4 years of struggle and hardship, right? Once you start your company excited, and then you actually find out what it means, what you have done to yourself and others around you. And then you come to phase 2, if you're still around, you know, you suddenly see early success come in, which is good, and so does growth, right? You see revenue coming in, and your staff is growing, but you also face challenges, right? You need new resources, you need to add processes, you need all sorts of certifications, and suddenly everything which does not generate revenue becomes very, very important. Then you end up in phase 3. So you expanded your resources, you spent money to serve your existing customers better and well, because you don't want to lose them, right? You spend so much time to get them, and also get ready for the next growth phase, right? So you need to lay the infrastructure and the resources well, so you can actually go the next 5-10 million revenue without suffering and without disappointing the next group of customers, right? And this is always a difficult decision and depends very much on shareholders. As I said, a lot of these expenses are not immediately revenue generating, right? But you need to have them. And only then you can really go for additional customer base, because you have actually the resources, processes, and the house in order and the foundations in place to do that, right? And can drive top line. And then when you reach phase 5, you go back to phase 3. Start again, consolidating the business, increasing processes and resources, so you can do the next leap. So I always see this kind of couple of million revenue steps. They always follow a certain path, really, right? And can be longer, can be shorter, but there seems to be this kind of evolution that is important and seems to be happening. I think where we failed partly was when we expanded geographically. I think we underestimated how that expansion and migration of decision powers can unearth cultural challenges, time zone issues, and if they're overlooked and not dealt with swiftly, they will be very difficult to reverse. And we went through that, right? You know, we moved from one office in the UK to having 5 offices in all continents almost in the world, and more than tripling the staff headcount, right? That was not an easy thing, and but that is one of the growth areas you really have to manage, because they quickly turn sour. So I would highlight that one as a particular challenge, because it's difficult, right? There's people involved, and that always makes it a bit more critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's an important bit. Isabel, go ahead.
I want to add something, because when you talk about growth in a startup, it goes back to what I was saying. You have to have the right people for the right job. And the entrepreneur, by definition, is a very special animal. And it's good to do one thing, I think, to get things started, to build new businesses, bring in new ideas, bring in new people, open doors, fight for everything. But at one point, the business gets to a point where that's not what the business needs anymore. It needs to be managed as a big business with lots of people, HR, finance, all the things that entrepreneurs find very boring. So at that point, the entrepreneur is not fit to lead the company anymore. And the entrepreneur has to actually realize that, which I think is a rare thing. They think it's their baby. It's obviously it's not hard. They've created from the start. They gave birth to it. They all the pains of making it grow, and it's hard for them to let it go. But they have to be intelligent enough to say, actually realize maybe I'm not the right person anymore to lead this company for the next level, what it needs to become, and then it needs to maybe step back. So I think that's something also to think or keep in mind, you know, and keep asking yourself, am I the right person for the job, for what needs to be happening for this company? So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that transition where you're no longer the person that signs the checks and cleans the hall, right? To start delegating and having the right people and know how to scale and not become the bottleneck for growth. It's a very important part. So, and one of the other parts, right? Because, you know, if starting a company, going to market, it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and it takes courage. It takes a number of factors to get there. And one of them is obviously making sure that you find that niche market, right? You're in an area with less competition, but there's always competitors. But then there's the other part, you know, you get in, you're successful. Normally, if you're very successful, someone's going to copy you very quickly, right? And it's that person, that company or entity is going to be cheaper, and they're going to be adding 1 or 2 features just to say they got the leg over you. So, and I wanted to start with you, Fabrizio, on Horizon. Your company with the messaging platform, right? That's an extremely competitive landscape right now. You know, everyone talks about CPaaS. Most people don't even know what it means, but everyone wants to have a part in it and be a part of it. How over the years, right, and still today, right, where now this concept is, how are you trying to keep ahead of your competitors? What's your thought process?
So I would just question that first. Is it possible to be ahead of your competitors all the time and in every part? And because I just think competition is good and is healthy. You know, when you have competition means there is a market, right? So that you are not working in an industry where might be the income is not so big. So competition can be very healthy. And it also keeps you all the time out of the comfort zone, because if you know selling your product is getting too easy, you know, you start to be lazy and all this, and it has dirty side effects which you should not enter. So from my point of view, competition is important. It keeps you awake, you know, and hungry. But you know, also here to have a recipe how you can be ahead of your competitors, I would like talk more generic. I mean, you have to find for your company how you can win new customers or how you can keep your existing customers. And there are different approaches what you can do. You can do, you know, this on a personal level, you know, because you have a very good sales approach or a very good customer relation approach, how you deal with your customers. Might be you have a very good service, you know, after you sold it, you keep them happy. Or it can be in the way that your product is simply good in the sense of that you add more and more features all the time and this keeps the customer happy. Or might be you are more flexible with the prices, giving discounts or giving better, let's say, flexible payment rates. I mean, there are so many things how you can be different from your competitors. Also here, it depends about your own company and what is the DNA of your company. And you should not sell your soul. You should be, even as a company, you should be who you are, right? And try also here to find what kind of clientele I'm going to acquire, you know, because you know, it's like with the cars, you know, I mean, just because Toyota brings out a new car does not mean that the others stop building new cars, right? You have your certain market and your certain customer groups that you can address. Maybe you should be strong on that and then maybe see how you can get also other customer segments. But I cannot tell you a general thing how we are exactly doing it, because also here this is fluid. And depending, this is a very fast moving market, so we have to adapt accordingly. No? Yeah. But you have to be awake and never in the comfort zone. So that's why competition is a good thing at the end.
Okay. So Elizabeth, I have a question for you regarding this, right? Because you've been facing customers. You have experience of dealing with customers, and especially having started in the startup, right? Which is excellent. As Andrea was saying, there was competition. There was still very little brand awareness about what you guys were doing, and a lot of closed doors. And what I've seen, at least some of it, is that at the famous FUD, which is the fear, uncertainty, and disinformation, which is the tactic to try to get in there, right? But there is a better way than that. So in your experience and your advice, when someone's in a very competitive environment and there's not that much brand awareness, and how did you get to open the doors for Ezelink back then?
That's a good question, actually. Well, I guess, I mean, also what I said earlier, you just simply have to be persistent. So you can't just take a no for granted. You have to find maybe another approach. You have to try a little bit later. You maybe have to address a few things that you know about the customer and pack it in a way that they see it maybe from a different angle. But I mean, you can't also really force it. So again, if you have a product or solution that really works for the market, And once you get the first few customers in, and maybe some of those are a bit bigger names, and you build very good relationships, I think really that helps you also a lot to get also the foot into other companies, because maybe you have kind of ambassadors, people that know your product and they recommend you. But yeah, I don't really think there was much else really you can really do it, except of like really just keep going for it and never giving up. It's
persistent.
Yeah, there was basically, if you have no choice, you have to get it done. It's that's what you do.
And it's interesting that we hear all these very charming stories about all these elaborate plans to get there, and sometimes it goes down to that point, which is persistence. Something as basic as persistent, don't give up, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't really bother people too much. I mean, you shouldn't scare them either, but yeah, you just have to be present. You just have to be around and yeah, try to build.
We all know that sales guys that is always on our inbox. So an interesting part, and I had a question here that I have to say I think of it, so which was like the key to success in entrepreneurship. But I want to shift this around, and Isabel, I'm coming to you with this one, kind of like a curveball here, right? Everyone talks about how how charming and how all of that into being an entrepreneur, and we hear all the success stories and all of these people that quit their jobs and started their company and now they're multi-billionaires and whatnot. But the truth is, right, the statistic tells us only 5% of the startups survive their first 5 years. Right, so there's 95%, and not all from all those 5 become multi-billion or multi-million-dollar companies, right? Some of them just stay at the size they are. So, Isabel, what is the one thing that no one talks about when it comes to entrepreneurship, but everyone that's thinking on becoming an entrepreneur should know? Tell us the best and worst of becoming an entrepreneur.
Okay, well, I think we've mentioned quite a few of these things already, but I think I will resonate to what the others have said is how difficult it is. You have no idea, and it's a good thing. That's why youth is so good, because you have no clue. You think you can beat the world, you'll never die, which is actually good, because if I went in knowing what I know now, I would have done not that. Either do a different business, because I kind of chose one of the most difficult business to go in, consulting, and I would maybe do it very differently. But so it's very, very difficult, and you never work enough. I tell people I've been working 24/7 for 19 years now, and actually I'm not exaggerating by a lot. So 27 days a week since the start, and it's still, when Andreas mentioned the beginning was hard, I thought, well, actually it's still hard, and I'm 20 years down the line. So yeah, so that's that. But if you're that type of person, probably that works for me. The type of person I am, I'm passionate and I like to achieve things. And maybe something that we don't talk about enough is how empowering it is. I mentioned it earlier in my discussion, how empowering it is to create something new and to bring people together to create something that wasn't there before. So, it's the power of, I'm not a power freak at all, far from it, but empowerment of feel that you've actually created something out of nothing. And then, I wake up every day, and every dollar that comes into my bank account, I create out of nothing. I don't show up at the office and think, okay, I've done my day's work now, where's my paycheck? No, often I go into the office, I don't have a paycheck. So, sadly. So, but it's the reality of being an entrepreneur. You have to go in eyes wide open, or maybe people will disagree with me. Maybe it's better if you're going eyes wide shut, because then maybe you'd never go in. But that's my experience, hard work, but also a lot of fun.
Okay. Andreas, your take?
My take, okay, well, I think, there's many beautiful things, and these are the ones that people really look forward to when they embark on this path. But I think Isabel very well mentioned all these things that are so glorious, and there's for sure no more exciting feeling than having built something on your own together with a nice and good bunch of people, and receiving your first order is, I think, the most exciting moment in everyone's startup career, right? Because it proves that somebody is willing to give dollars for something you have created, built, or whatever, or constructed, right? And but there's also, because you mentioned the downsides or the things nobody ever talks about, right? I think what I can observe sometimes is, people are not really aware that, if you start a business, that means you have to be around, right? And the Germans have a very good word for that. It means if you're self-employed, you're selbstständig. And literally translated, it means selbst means you, and ständig means permanent. So basically, you work yourself permanently, right? So I think the Germans have a very good definition for self-employment or entrepreneurship, if you like, right? That's one part. A lot of people, I think, they think, oh, we hire just a lot of people, and then I can sit in my beach lounger and enjoy my Ferrari, right? That comes much later, if ever, right? Then another one is, I think people don't talk about this really judgment and emotional competence, right? Because when you start the business, you have to build a culture around it, and that's the way you treat people, and that's the way you make decisions. That is basically the foundation, the DNA, the fabric of the organization you have created. And once it's on the way, you cannot change it, because you already surrounded yourself with a certain level or group of people who kind of either match that or they don't. And that is also very, very difficult to ever go back on. So, you cannot let these two items left unchecked, and you cannot simply outsource people to HR, right? Or to the CFO, which probably even worse. So these are things, I think, which are not very often talked about, but they need to be, very carefully looked at. And the last two, where you have absolutely no influence about or over, is timing and luck, which also people never mention. But if you don't have luck and good timing in business, just don't go there. You need a certain level of luck, because they were good products, but they had bad luck.
That's true.
And
That's
I think
very true.
I think I agree with you there, Andreas, because I saw someone talking recently about luck in business, and I think he said something interesting. Because I often say, no, I'm so unlucky in business. But the thing is, you have to have luck, but you have to realize that you're at the moment that's it. That is your moment. You've got your chance, you've got your luck. Now you have to, do something with it. Because a lot of people don't realize they had that luck. They had that point where it was the time, and they didn't realize. I think the realization of where you're at that point is quite important. It's quite tricky to achieve as well. But I don't know, Fabrizio, I don't know. Are you a lucky guy in business?
Well, for sure, we are all blessed. I mean, otherwise we would not be here and talk about the success what we had, And now today we can look back and laugh about all the hard times, and the slaps what we got. And so I'm happy if we overpassed all this, but we should never forget where we came from. So if I can answer maybe 2 or 3 or bring in 2 or 3 points about key success to be an entrepreneur, I think one thing what is very important is you have to dream. And the dream is not, hey, I wake up and now we will increase revenue 1%. Gee, for this, you can have a manager, right? That's not your job. An entrepreneur should think big and dare to dream, and he should dream, because that's, let's say, in my case, this is my passion, my fire, and then I want to reach this dream, not even a goal, it's really a dream. And this gives you the power, and the extra energy that you can work, literally speaking, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because being successful is not a 9-to-5 job. Normally not. Then you have really a lot of success, what Andreas said before, then you really have a lot of success. But normally this is, it's the other way around. So it's a very hard job. And this gives, for me, the second point I would like to mention as a success key is don't give up, because it will be hard. You will see the valley, a lot of times, you know, we'll be down, but stand up again and just continue. This is, I think, key of everything. You don't need to have the best product, you know. You don't need to be the best sales guy. You don't need to have the best marketing material or whatever, but just, you should just not stop and continue. And then I think success with the right timing, a little bit of luck can come.
All right, thank you. And persistence again, right? Elizabeth mentioned a few times. So, all right. So I think we've covered most of it, but for the more impatient young entrepreneurs, they're just going to watch the last 2 or 3 minutes of this session, right? What I would like is in a 1 or 2 word answer, right? To tell for young people who are thinking on becoming entrepreneurs, what is the one thing they should do before starting their entrepreneurship journey, right? A 1 to 2 word answer for the impatient ones, which is very common nowadays. Our attention span is getting shorter and shorter as we go. So I'll start with Isabel, and then Andreas, Liz, and then Fabrizio. All right, Isabel.
So maybe we touched on it a little bit during our discussion, is develop your network of contacts before you get to start your business, because you will need people along the way that will open doors for you, that will be your champions, and that will help, you know, because as some of you said, the first part of your business is hard to open doors, to get people to trust you. So if you have a very strong network of contacts, people can help you along the way. I think that will be very important. And maybe young people, I don't know if they value that so much now, but I think if that's the one thing I would say, get your network built with good people that will support you.
Okay. Andreas?
Well, one word will not be enough, Miguel, but I would say ask yourself or reflect truly why you actually want to become an entrepreneur. Are there true reasons, which we have discussed, I think, over the last 1 hour? And do you match, or is it just one of these, yeah, I want to be a rock star. I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was a child, but well, never got close. And I wouldn't be a good one. I would just go back home immediately. Yeah, I think that's the key question, right? Is it for you? Are you the right person? Do you have the right idea? Do you have the right stamina to do it? And answer truthfully to yourself, because you figure out anyway, sooner or later, right?
Okay. Elizabeth?
Well, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I'm surrounded by a few, including also my husband. So, well, it's not romantic, that's for sure. And if you embark on that journey, just make sure you have the right partner next to you, because they might not ride it out all the way. So, yeah, that's maybe just more on the personal side and from a personal view. Yeah, it doesn't look as rosy as it might sound.
All right, thank you. Fabrizio?
I would also say, ask yourself, are you really, really ready to leave your comfort zone, to give up some privileges, what you have, and you work very hard for a long period? And if the answer is no, then don't start to be an entrepreneur.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, all of you. This was a great session. I really appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you.